show, Friends with Benefits podcast. I'm Justin. This is Pansy. Welcome,
And
one,
then,
one viewer who's
yeah, we
watching
have
us.
JZ.
Yeah, we got a friend with us. We got a guest with us tonight, so we're gonna talk to our guest here in just a second. But Pansy and I decided to start this thing a little at a different time. We were just talking about this because we're I don't know. We're not trying to compete with all the other people that have Zooms earlier in the afternoon, so we're starting ours a little bit later and give people the option to jump in here and meet us and meet other people and network and all that fun stuff. So that's why we started it a little bit later tonight. So yeah, and our guest only has a short time, so I want to make sure we bring him on and just have a conversation real quick. So JZ, let's bring you up real quick. What's up, JZ?
What up? What up? What's going on?
How you doing, man?
Right.
Thanks for jumping
JZ
on.
is one of my buddies from Deal Connectors, right? That's your
Nice.
Yeah.
Facebook.
That's how I met Pansy, right? From
Yeah.
Tigger. We started Deal Connectors about a year, just over a year and a half ago almost.
Nice.
And just kind of put it together to try to help people connect correctly and better and safely and all that good stuff. And Tigger and I had made some good money and we thought, well, let's share it with the community. And so we did and got some good traction from that. So we decided, kind of help people. Because at that time, Pace didn't really have a whole lot of videos in regards to connecting. So, and yeah, today I'm fast forward a year, just over a year. So we've got what almost just over 800 members in our group. It's all Gators and stuff too. So it wasn't like we were trying to steal anybody, but it's all Gators stuff too. Just another avenue or another area for people to kind of share stuff but for us, it was just trying to help people connect. A lot of
Yeah.
people, even today, there's a lot of people who are losing money because of bad connectors, right? And so there are a lot of bad, we know this, there's a lot of bad apples in regards to funding or borrowers, but there's a lot of bad connectors too.
Oh yeah. Oh
Sometimes,
yeah.
sometimes unintentionally, but there's some bad connectors out there. So to try to help avoid losing money, I'm in the hole for 90 grand right now in a foreclosure. So I know that it sucks
Yeah.
when your money's tied up. So
Yeah.
I try to
Yeah.
do what I can as a connector to try to avoid that.
Let me ask you this. What does that look like? Like give me an example of a bad connector.
Um, well, I think a bad connector is somebody, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, first of all. So,
Mhm.
people go in, they see an opportunity and I think it's part of that whole shiny object syndrome where they go in, they see an opportunity to make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, right? And somebody saying, hey, I need $100,000 to rehab this house. Hey, Mr. Borrower, I can help you out. They go and connect it to a connector who says, hey, I've got 100,000 or I've got 50,000. Now I've got two people who want to lend out $50,000. So the bad borrower is not so much as and it's probably a bad term as a bad borrower, but more of an un, untaught, or
Yeah.
maybe just
Untrained,
untaught,
unschooled. Yeah.
untrained. That's what I'm looking for. Untrained
Mhm.
connector, right? And they put these two together and not really knowing what to do other than to connect them and then expect a payment. But you
Yeah.
didn't vet the deal. You didn't vet the borrower. You didn't go through the numbers. And maybe if you did, you missed some stuff. You were looking for a reason to fund it rather than a reason not to fund it. So you probably
Right.
missed the fact that this guy's probably, if you don't, for instance, I had this couple of ladies in New Mexico. They asked me for, I think it was like 100, 110,000 to rehab a property. And I'm like, okay, I like the numbers. The numbers worked well. I mean, she was like in a 55, 60% loan to value. I was like, based off the ARV, I was like, oh man, I like it. Initially I liked her. We started vetting as I started looking into her partner. She was unwilling to kind of give me information. So it made me kind of leery. So then
Mm.
I Googled the name of the partner and come to find out that the name was being sued by the government for embezzlement. So that's
Wow.
interesting, right? And
Wow.
then
Yeah.
so I asked her, I was like, hey, is this your partner? She's like, oh, no, that was taken care of. Well, I talked to the realtor agent and I said, hey, I said, look, I'm a lender and I'm about to lend to this person. Can you just please help me out?
Yeah.
And so she goes, I could hear her close the door. And it's almost like she did like one of those kind of look around kind of a deal and close the door. She's like, okay, look,
Yeah.
here's the thing. All the ladies in my office are leery about working with these people because we know that they've been sued for embezzlement. And she goes, you might want to be careful and not lend to them. And I said, thank you so much. Now I know
Yeah.
she probably didn't have to do that, but she did. So I literally pulled out. And so, anyways, if you don't vet, if you're not vetting the deal, if
Yeah.
you're not going through there looking for looking for issues about the borrower, rather than,
Mhm.
a deal's a deal. The numbers are, if you vet the numbers, usually they're pretty easy for the
Mhm.
most part. but it's borrower, I think. And
Uh,
so, anyways, vetting a bar. So I think a bad bar, a bad connector is just somebody who's just not really vetting everything properly, taking the time. You want to take 3 to 4 days, 5 days, go through everything, make
Yeah.
sure it's
yeah.
correct.
I think you're right, JZ, like, um, on the connector side, because that's what I do. Um, you know, like I don't just like sending people to someone. You know what I'm saying? Like I get to know them a little bit and I get to feel them out as a person. I look at their socials. I see where they're hanging out in other Zooms or whatever. Um, and really, and that's like I'm vetting the person before I even look at whether or not I'm gonna try to get help with a deal. And then if I'm connecting them with somebody, if I really don't know them well, I'm reaching out to people like yourself and Tigger and people who are good at making sure they're vetting people, right? And I'll let them know, hey, I don't know very much about this person, but they're looking for assistance here. If you can help them, cool. If you can't, but I never like go in saying, I always say, even if I do know the person, even if it were Justin, I'm going to say, you need to do your own due diligence,
Yeah.
right? Because people could pull a fast one on you, you know?
Hey, I'll give you a prime
And it happens
example.
all the time.
I'll give you a prime example, Justin. This morning, we were vetting this guy. We got a guy in Wisconsin looking for some money, and I said, "Hey, the insurance guy." I called him because I call insurance title. I just call him just to make sure they have a relationship with the people, whatever. So I'm calling the insurance guy. The guy called me back like twice the last 2 days, and I was just so busy I couldn't get a hold of him. Finally, this morning, 5:30 in the morning, he calls me. He says, "Hey, I'm sorry to wake you up. I know we've been trying to connect. So what's going on?" So I say, "Hey, here's this guy. We're looking, to see if you know him." He says, "I do know him," and I was like, "Okay, hey, I just want to make sure that the property's insurable before we close." He says, "Okay, cool." I was like, he said, "Well, let me pull it up." And he goes, "Oh yeah, he's already owned it since November." Okay, that's interesting. And under what name? Verify the name. And here's the funny part is he's asking for rehab and purchase money. He has already owned the property since November, and he's
Hmm.
asking me for the purchase money today. And so I called title company and said, "Hey, do you have this, this address of this person?" They said, "Yeah." He closed back in November. I have it. I have the title right here. I'll send you a copy of it. She sent me a copy. I said, "Hey, I'm a lender. He's asking for this money, but he didn't tell me he didn't purchase it." And apparently, according to him, to you, he closed. She goes, "Yeah, we closed back in November. He owns this property." And he sent me a purchase agreement, and I was already leery about the purchase agreement. So today I found out, and I told my guys, like, I'm done. I'm not gonna work with you. So I said no. He didn't like it. He was like, "No, man, they're wrong. I, am I gonna believe title company or am I gonna believe you?" You know what I mean?
Right.
So I ended up
Right.
pulling out of the deal. So
Yeah.
it happens if
Yeah.
you're not vetting it correctly and calling everybody involved, you're gonna get
Yeah.
scammed or you're gonna put somebody's money in jeopardy. So.
Yeah, that's so, oh man. And so you never really found out what the deal. He's probably just lying, or is he like a scamster pretending to be this person?
No, you know what? There's a lady who I do know that I reached out to, and she says no, he is a rehabber, but
Yeah.
I don't care about his reason or for the purpose of asking for the money.
Yeah.
All I know is his company owns the property, and I'm not going to give him purchase money for a property he already owns.
Yeah. Why would, yeah, that's interesting, man.
He was probably trying to do like
He might be
without,
trying to pay himself back. I don't know, but I
yeah,
Yeah.
don't
like
care.
a
Yeah.
refinance, but he didn't label it that way,
Yeah, but the point is like if that's what you're trying to do, be honest about it and
Be
straight
honest.
up about what you're trying to do,
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
yeah,
Absolutely. 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
but
I've
I think
heard,
maybe some people don't intentionally do things sometimes. They're naive, but they're afraid to ask and or say, I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to ask for, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
sometimes they don't
possibly.
know. So I'm just saying, but he shouldn't have said he didn't own it.
No, that's
Yeah.
such a great
Yeah.
story. That's such a great story, though.
Yeah.
You erred on the side of caution. You did your due diligence. You called who you needed to call. You figured out some information that you wouldn't have known otherwise had you not done your due diligence. And what worst case scenario is you would have borrowed that money or you would have lent that money and probably lost it, right? Or the potential is very high that you would have lost that money, right? So I've heard story after story after story about people getting scammed out of their money. And it's not always, like Pansy was saying, it's not always people scamming. Shit goes wrong too, you know? Like things that are unforeseeable happen. But that's a part of doing your due diligence and understanding as an adult, like we're all adults here. You know, you're if you're gonna get into the big boy game of lending, like you need to understand that there's risk involved and you're not guaranteed anything, right? And like
Yep.
people love blaming other people for stuff that happens like that, but you got to take the responsibility for yourself and understand, just like you said, if you're not doing that due diligence, if you don't understand the risks, then don't do it. Because it's, yeah, I mean, I forget, I think it was Mark Abramovich. We'll eventually have Mark on the show too. I want to bring him on here too because he's a lender as well. But he said one of the best lines I've ever heard. He's like, it's easy lending money. Anybody will take your money. What the trick is getting paid back with interest.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, it's but again, and he talks about this too. Same thing, like it's all like most of his time is spent vetting not only the deal but the people involved too, right?
Well,
So
and that's what I do, right? Like even on our Zooms, the big, we kind of hone in a lot on vet.
yeah,
Anytime I mention anything, like if you read any comments, like I read some of these comments of people who've lost money. Even recently, there's some comments going around, and I'm like, the biggest thing is the vet everything
yeah,
and everyone, and I mean, that's the only way to really protect it. Now, at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. But if you've
yeah.
done your due diligence, I mean, you can at least feel safeguarded in the sense that okay, I've done what I can, and if it goes bad, well, I mean, a lot of times, like I've had the one I have, it went
Mhm.
bad not because of the borrower. The borrower, we made a mistake giving more money than we should have up front, but
Mm.
she kind of trusted the contractor, and he kind of took off with the money. And
Oh,
but she didn't. But here's but she didn't tell us when it happened. She
mm.
waited
Mm.
to try to figure out her own and dug herself a deep hole that
Yeah,
she could get out of, and it was too late by the time she told us. So it's
yeah,
kind of the everybody's fault, right? Her
yeah.
fault, our fault. But I mean the deal was great. The numbers were great. She was great. We vetted her. I mean, she was great. Her dad. I mean, everything had a strong
Mm.
foothold in the city that they're in.
Mm.
But that one mistake led to other mistakes that just kind of dug a hole for her. She couldn't get out of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here we are, a year and a half later, and I still want my $90,000. So
Oh man. So you know what? And I understand that's a hard freaking conversation to have with someone. But imagine now, how would it have been different if she had told you earlier on that that's what happened?
we could have figured. Here's the thing: is we could have figured out solutions. I like trying to
Yeah,
figure out solutions, right?
yeah,
Me and my other two partners on that deal, we could have easily figured out. So a solution would have been okay. Look, don't worry about it. Maybe we'll fund it. So I would have liked to have taken that property over, which we
yeah.
would have at foreclosure. Here's what happened: she put a second and a third property, a second and a third lien on our property to try to get herself in a
Get
position
her
to
out of
pay
get
back
her out of the
more.
mess. Yeah,
What
yeah.
Oh,
happened?
I've heard a story like that before.
Mm.
When we took that property, when we tried to take the property, we couldn't because we'd have to take that debt. I didn't want to pay that
Yeah,
debt. So
yeah,
had that debt not been there, I'd have been able to take the property, rehabbed it, and broke even. But I couldn't do
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Here
yeah,
we are. Here we are.
yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
So
it's
what it
nice to
is.
get feedback
But
too,
it's one of the
though.
best lessons I've learned. What's that?
Yeah. It's good to get feedback though. Like I tried to help somebody to get funding before who sounds like they were in a very similar situation as your borrower.
mhm.
And the people that I sent them to didn't give me any feedback of the reason why, right? Like, oh, well, we don't have, like the one person was like gonna charge an extra 30 grand on top of the lending, right? And I'm like, what in the heck are you talking about? Essentially, they were another connector. Okay. But then I went to somebody else because I'm like, no, that's not happening. you know, I went to somebody else and they just said, oh, we just can't do that. They didn't really give me any feedback. Went to somebody else and they're like, they have several liens already on the property. I'm like, what? How come nobody told me this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the first two people could have told me what the problem was. I wouldn't have kept going, you know? And so it just, yeah, something else.
Yeah, it is good to get feedback. I mean, I've got a story. There was a woman that we met early on. This is probably like my first year going down this real estate journey. And she had gotten herself, she was a rehabber slash wholesaler. She'd been doing it for a little while. She had a nice kind of little business built up for herself. She had hired a couple of VAs and whatnot. So she started getting into rehabbing, right? And she got herself into 5 different properties. So she had 5 different properties, all being rehabbed at the same time. And long story short, she bit off way more than she could chew. Few of the properties, her numbers were off. It wasn't going to sell for what she thought. Another one, the contractor did a horrible job, so she had to find a new contractor, which is normal. That's all normal stuff. Like this is all part of the deal, right? But it ended up costing her way more than she was expecting. So a lot of the homes either broke even or lost money. But the worst part is that she had, and now I don't know the full story of this, but I know she borrowed some money from some very strong people in the industry that you would not want to BS, right? That if they lend money, like
They're getting their
they're getting
money.
they're getting their money back. They're either going to get the house or they're going to sue you or sue and take the house or some, they're going to get their money back one way or another, right? And they put time limits on it. So the scope of work was supposed to be for, a certain amount of time. She went way beyond that. And it just got to the point where they were just done. They weren't going to wait any longer. They weren't going to throw any more money, good money after bad money kind of situation. She lost all 5 of the properties, basically. Long story short, she lost all 5 of the properties, lost something like almost $400,000 of her money and lost, no, I'm sorry, she lost about $400,000 of other people's money. They got it back by taking the properties back, and she lost, I think, like a few hundred thousand on it of her own money. But and it was because exactly what you were talking about. She wasn't communicating this stuff. She wasn't asking for help from the people. She was trying to hide it. You know what I mean? She was trying to save her butt any way she could, and just one bad decision after another got her into that situation.
This is where friends would come in
Yeah,
handy.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. But
it's one of the things it's one of the things I require from as a connector, but I'm a rehabber too, right? So I'm completely honest with my lenders.
mm,
We'll do my partner will either do a weekly or bi-weekly, you know, just kind of a rundown through everything. We'll go through our scope of work and say, okay, here's what we did, and we'll do a walkthrough if they want it. But I mean, only because
mm,
I understand that, right? But we require most of our borrowers to kind of do a bi-weekly walkthrough and
mm,
update every other Friday, right?
mm,
Just because I think it works. It's not every Friday, so it's not too overwhelming because I know that they're busy, they're working. It's Fridays, everybody's trying to go home. We'll try to
mm,
go in early and get a walkthrough, just
yeah,
to kind of, get an update, right? And
mm,
it's just kind of a requirement. They know it. I tell them up front. But a lot of the big thing is some of these people get ghosted because of the lack of relationship. I think if people
it's true.
focus on a relationship with any borrower that you work with any lender that you're working with, a lot of it's relationship, right? So I think going into this, if they have like I've got even the lady that owes us money, we still have.
Mm,
I could pick up the phone and call her, and she'll answer my call. I don't get ghosted, right?
yeah,
She just made a bad decision. It doesn't make her a bad person. She just made a bad decision, and so a lot of it's just relationships, and I try to I emphasize a lot of that with especially new people I'm talking to. Build a relationship with anybody you decide to work with. Get to know
yeah,
them, get to know who they are, let them get to know who you are, and so that if something does go wrong, which again it's part of the game, right? Things are going to go wrong. Hopefully they don't ghost you because of the relationship they have and they have enough respect for you. So
yeah,
I've been
Yeah, I
fortunate.
agree.
Oh,
yeah.
Then, because that was one thing about that other person is it ended up he already lent or borrowed from somebody that I knew, but I didn't know right at the time that so and so the person obviously was upset, but you know, the person who borrowed the money, the borrower, was still in contact,
Mhm.
you know, but they insisted on saying that they were purposely doing all of this and all, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, but if they're still in contact with you, I don't believe they're purposely trying to
Yeah.
dodge you, you know, like get out of this. I
Yeah.
believe they're doing what they can from the conversations. And
Yeah.
if they're still talking to you, you know what I'm saying? Because that goes a long way. Because I've had conversations with plenty of people who have been on the other side that did borrow the money, that couldn't pay it back, but they were trying to. And they kind of went into hiding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's worse. Don't go into hiding.
Yeah.
You know, but I could see why some of the people did, because the way the lender, the person who lent, reacted,
Mhm.
you know. So it goes both ways. Nobody wants to get screwed over, but nobody, like, people aren't always doing it on purpose.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge point right there, because whether or not, like, if they were communicating with you, maybe they weren't doing the right thing on the like behind the scenes, whatever they were doing, but at least they were communicating with you, and maybe they were doing what they thought was the right thing, but at least they were communicating with you. They didn't ghost you. So like, you as the lender, what is Jamil always says this, like, friction creates heat, heat creates fire, and fire destroys. So like, just creating more friction is not going to help solve the problem. You as the lender going in and screaming and yelling at this person, I'm going to sue you, you stole my money, getting all crazy with them is not going to help the situation. So I understand everybody's, tempers are going to be a little bit high, right? But that kind of behavior, especially if they're communicating with you, let's find a solution. Like you were saying, JZ, like, let's find a solution. At least you're communicating with me and you're telling me up front. Let's figure out a solution to this problem, right? Where everybody can either break even or still make out in this situation, right?
Yep,
So
I would
yeah,
agree.
I see that. I don't know how often you see that, but
All the time.
it's pretty common. Like, people want to blame, we all want to blame someone else, right? We want to point the finger someplace else. But this is why you borrow from wealthy people. You'll never get complaints from wealthy people. I'm just kidding.
No, you might not be kidding.
Kidding, but not kidding.
They just write that
Yeah.
crap off. I
Yeah.
needed a write off anyway,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Well, people still want to know what's happening with their money, but the point is, again,
It doesn't hurt them as much.
it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt them as much, and they're not going to react if you're at least communicating the whole time and they know what's going on. They're I don't see them flipping out, right? It's like, okay, cool, let's be
Well,
grown-ups. Let's
and
be
the difference is, somebody who with that kind of money, they're very aware of the
the
possible
risks.
of the risk, right?
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
aware. Rather than somebody who's new, even myself, like I was new to this when I first did it, and so I was super nervous. Sure, I remember my stomach turning when I was at the bank wiring the money. Like I was just
yeah,
nervous, right?
yeah.
So versus somebody who has, the fortitude to be able to do this all the time. They already used to, probably been burned a few times, already know how it works, but they understand the upside is, you're gonna make good money if it all works out, right? So, and how many probably do work out versus how many don't, right? It's probably a better
Right.
percent, a higher percentage that they
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So if you know any of those people, send them my way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. Well, we do. I mean, look, this is why it pays to have friends. This is one of the number one reasons, right? I'm just kidding. I mean, it's one of the great reasons of having friends. The best reason is that you've got a big network, and we all watch each other's backs, and we all help each other, and you know, do more deals, right?
Yeah.
Build our portfolios, build our wealth, whatever you want to say, but that's why it's like right there, and I will share it. I mean, I know some folks like that. I do. So I'm happy to share that with you. And so let me ask you a quick question. The the vetting process that you go through, like if I were to throw a deal in front of you and like, hey, it's me, we just met, I have this deal, um, I've been a part of some flips before, but I've never taken one on myself. I need 100 grand to get this done. It's property in Los Angeles. The upside is we're gonna sell it, we're gonna buy it for 500,000 and we're gonna sell it for close to 1 million, right? That's what I'm telling you, right? What does that look like for you? What is that process? Maybe you give it, like, you don't have to go through like super detail, but like a high
Yeah,
level walkthrough of what that looks like for you to
it's
vet me.
easy.
Yeah.
So easy, right? First of all, you already said two things that already turned me away. So first of
Yeah.
all, you're in California and it's your
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
Chances are I probably nothing with you,
Yeah.
right? So that's probably off the bat. If
Mhm.
you don't have a HUD or two at least,
Mhm.
chances I'm not going to work with you, just because of the if something goes wrong. One is if you're there, boots on the ground, like when it's going on, maybe, or I'll reach out to somebody who's willing to take the risk. But more than
Mhm.
likely, I'm not going to work with somebody. It's not the first
Mhm.
time, and I don't do nothing in California. So everything I do is in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Everything Ohio, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, those center state, those central states, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm betting, I have a form. I don't even do anything anymore. Now I just say, hey, just everything that's on the form, and it consists of everything you need. Like when I send my form out to any lenders or anybody in particular who's looking at everything is there. There's nothing needed, but we're requesting your LLC docs. We're requesting your ID. We're requesting your credit score. We're requesting, your previous HUDs, title company, insurance company. I want to know, make sure that the company, so there was a house that we were trying to fund that we did fund in Missouri, and that house was like 110 years old. I had to call and talk to two insurance companies to make sure that they would insure it. The one said no, the other one said yes. We ended up going with that one. So, those all obviously your general contractor's information. I want to know who they, I want to know their license, their LLC docs. I want to have their insurance company. I want to make sure they've done some. A lot of times we ask for previous work that they've done just to verify
Mhm.
their stuff.
Mhm.
It's pretty much it. And then all the information on the property itself, right? And from the borrower. So it's just gathering all the information, and I won't even look at it most of the time. Usually, once I have the information, I'll look at it. Once I have it, and if I like the numbers, I'll do a quick ARV, check, make sure it hits our numbers. If it does, I say, hey, let's get on the call. So after the call, if it goes well, then we proceed. I'll start to vet everything. I'll call everywhere and call everything. Like Pansy said, I'll call their, look up their social media and whatnot.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to find stuff. I'm trying to find. So one of the things I teach is this: is I'm trying to find a reason not to fund it. Right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
looking for red flags. I'm looking for. See, the thing is, people go into this thing and they want to, again, they make that 1,000, 3,000, so they're looking for any reason to fund it. And the problem is, you overlook, really simple red flags. But if you go into every deal looking for a reason not to fund it, not just to make the money, I get it. We all want to make that 1,000, 2,000, $3,000. I get it. Like it's nice, but and some people need it more than others. I get that, but
Mhm.
at what risk, right?
Mhm.
At whose expense? And so I just go into every deal looking for a reason not to fund it, and it really has allowed me to really see more of the scope of what's happening, right? So that I can maybe catch things that I probably normally in the beginning I didn't catch. And thankfully,
Yeah.
I had a good partner. I had a couple good partners that were lenders who funded a good majority of my deals in the very beginning,
Yeah.
and they were able to catch things that I couldn't. They say, "Hey, we're not going to do this because of this, or we're not
Yeah.
going to fund this because of that." And so I started to learn, right? So I realized it's so important to look for reasons not to fund something rather than fund something. You'll hear me
That's a
say
good
that.
point. That's a super good point. Yeah, and the same when we're looking at properties, like we're trying to disqualify them, not
Mhm.
qualify them. We're trying to disqualify as many as we can. We were just looking at a multifamily deal before we got on this, before we started doing look, and it should only take about 2 minutes. You should be able to look at it. You've got your qualifier, like you look for certain things in certain areas. They don't hit these marks, it's out.
Mhm.
If they do hit those marks, then it gets really easy. It's by the numbers, right? And if it doesn't hit a certain marker, like just move on to the next one, right? or what have you. So it's a lot about disqualifying that. Yeah, for sure. And looking for reasons not to do it. I wish somebody had told me that like 2 years ago, but
Yeah, me
They
too.
probably did, and you didn't
probably didn't
Probably
listen,
did.
listen. Yeah, I
You're
probably
Justin.
probably
didn't listen.
right.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
probably did, and we didn't hear it. So
yeah. We didn't hear it or didn't want to hear it, right?
I know I heard it in the beginning,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Not wrong. You're not
because I'm
wrong.
all about doing the least amount of steps, like
Yeah,
let's knock this out right away. If
yeah,
this is not going to work, why keep going, you
yeah.
know?
So
I think
Justin,
that's right.
you're sub two guy. Justin, you're sub
Mhm.
two guy, right? How long have you been part
Mhm.
of the sub two? What do you typically do?
If I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the question.
So
Not
what do
part
you
of sub two.
typically do? Like what's your thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So right now it's kind of a lot of different things. Like so the first time in this whole thing I was learning about wholesaling. So that's what I did, right? It's made a lot of phone calls. Finally got my first, it took me about a year to get my first deal. And that deal netted me enough to have enough to go buy my first property on creative financing. So I got my first property in Austin on creative financing. And that property, it's not gonna, I'm not retiring from my job on it, but it breaks even, so it's okay. It's not, I probably make like $50 a month on it, something like that. But it's in Austin, it's in a nice place. I get my tax write-offs from it, and it was a good experience, really good learning experience. So right now we're still on the acquisition side, we're still putting together an acquisition system for a direct agent and just trying to kind of feel where things work and where they don't. And I've spent a long time kind of building this thing out. And so I'm trying to really stress test it with a few folks and trying to see if we can get it to really start producing fruit, to start bringing us deals, bringing us leads that Pansy and I want to buy, number one. And if we don't want to buy it, then we wholesale it, right? That's kind of the idea,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Nice.
So and then also the goal is to start buying businesses, get a bunch of doors and start buying business, transition into buying businesses. So
Yeah, that's definitely my goal this year. I've been already, doing some Cody Sanchez's like videos, just
love
watching
Cody
her.
Sanchez, yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. So I've been watching her and a couple other guys, just Kyle, what's his name? Kyle Maston or Mast a couple different guys I've been watching in regards to buying businesses and just trying to slowly head down that direction. I've already hit up my I forgot that lady's name. Her last name is Nguyen, I think. And she talks about having mailbox accessories or whatever. And so I've actually hit up the mailbox accessory by my house and the laundromat by my house. The owners to say, hey, if you ever thought about selling, I'd be interested in buying it. I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't. But I hit them up and just kind of and they said, well, we thought about it, but we don't know. And so, slowly they see me, they know me. So maybe at some point they'll change their mind and it'd be nice to have something right by my house that I know does very well, does pretty well. So both those, and they're right next to each other, literally right next to each other. It'd be nice
You
to
know
have
what?
both.
Those are the best kind of stories. In fact, if you stay on it and you keep getting to know them, they will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna like at some point they're gonna want to sell the business, right?
Yep. At some point.
So at some point.
And they're not
So like,
young.
hey
Neither one
man,
of the owners are young.
well, yeah. What about that kid who keeps coming in and talk to us, like that we know, right? He's been really interested and he's been really consistent, and he seems like a good kid, right?
Yeah.
I'm calling you a kid, but you know what I'm saying.
I yeah, I
Well,
Um,
he's
know.
not old.
Well,
yeah, but you know
to
what I'm
them
saying, right?
I'm probably a kid. I'm 50 years old, but shoot.
Yeah, yeah. But right, but they're probably baby boomers, right, or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That have owned the place for years and years and years and years, and so yeah, you're getting to know these people. It's about the relation, about the friendships, right? It's about the relationships. So, um, yeah, if you keep on it, I'm sure they will, man. That's
Absolutely. But yeah, that's the direction I want to head down to
yeah,
is have a good, 4 or 5 businesses under my belt, which bring cash flow. Where at some point I'm 50 years old. My goal would be to be able to retire at like 55, 56 years old, quit my job. I mean, I got a good job. I like what I do and I get paid pretty good. And for California, it's nice. And so but I'd like to quit. I'd like to not have to come up. I mean, I get 6 days off, and so I really get a chance to it's to see what it's like to not have to come to work, and it's really nice. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think rentals will make it. You gotta own a lot of rentals in order for that to happen. I mean, not necessarily, but you know, you could do a few good deals and it make it happen. But I think some businesses, man, would be nice. You know, just would be nice.
Yeah.
That's
I've been
definitely.
looking at these mailbox stores. I keep coming across the thing about buying a franchise. I'm like, this is actually kind of interesting, you know?
It is. It
The
is. You'd be
and
surprised.
that, but it's
It'll
like
take a whole lot
more
of
like
learning
they're
to
making
do
it
that.
more now. The one that I read about, like they're actually making it like mailboxes and like office spaces all in the same building. So you technically can say it's your office, but you're not necessarily like keeping all of your stuff there, like regular desk and everything. It's a shared space. So those types of things are kind of interesting. So
It is. So I have I actually have my PO box there, and you know, it's my office, it's my business address, and so, but you know, just go in there regularly, and it's just nice. At some point, again, if I could own that thing, I don't know, they do very well. UPS, all these different places show up there, and so they make good money, man. I'm sure of it. So
let's
we'll see what
do
happens.
it.
Let's do it.
We'll
And
see what
we're
happens.
Let's
gonna Pansy invited Abraham Gray on here, so we're gonna have a conversation with Abraham.
That guy's a beast, man.
Oh,
I was watching
on a
him.
different
Who
level.
was it? Lance Riggin interviewed him briefly at the Squad Up. I saw that video that Lance put up, and that guy's a beast, bro. My question to him is, how do you manage all that? Like, he's just a
Right,
beast.
right.
I want to know how you manage it because I want to implement that in my life. How do you
Well,
manage it?
he's got the
Give me an
right
example.
people in place, that's
Absolutely.
where,
Yeah.
you know, friends come in handy, I'm sure. And then
Yeah, but you got to be able to know where they're going to be efficient, right? You got to know what's needed to run a particular business, his lending business, his real estate business, his flipping business, like all these businesses he was mentioning. Like you've got to have the right people in place to run that business. You can't just put somebody just because you know somebody, right? I mean, you got to put the right person.
right.
What is
Well,
it?
he
What
found
is it that
Alexis
they need to do?
Morgan, who was, she's freaking awesome. I mean, he's
I,
So
had,
my
honestly
so
look. Oh, good.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't think Abraham necessarily has anything to do with that anymore. I think they have HR, they have people that manage the hiring and the placement of people that they need for the various businesses. I think he sits in on financial calls. How's the business doing? What does it need to do better? That's I mean that's and
I don't know, he's doing flips regularly.
yeah, I mean, but how
He's
do you have time to do flips if you're managing all these businesses? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
We have to ask him,
Yeah.
right? We'll have to bring him
Well,
on
make
and
sure you
ask.
send me that link. If I don't see it, make sure you send me that link when
Oh,
he
we'll
gets
send
on. I
it out
definitely
for
want.
sure.
I
Yeah.
am curious to see what he says. But yeah, he's impressive. I mean, sure, just like some of these guys that are doing really big stuff like him, it's just impressive to me, man. Because I don't come from this kind of background. You know what I mean?
Neither do
I
I.
I've worked hard my entire life, and so I would like to learn like what do I need to set up in order to be able to have it automized so that I could go out and do what I do, and it could still run and be strong and be and just build the way it's supposed to be, right? Like I've got a gem of a partner. Like she's great. I'm glad I met her, and so her name's Jennifer Mead, and so she's just awesome. She's great. I'm glad we work together. We mesh well together. We both think well. She's able to kind of bounce off ideas. She's not afraid to tell me no, and that's what I need. Somebody who's not afraid to tell me no, and vice versa. Like she's okay if I say, hey, no, I don't really like that. And so, but we're both trying to learn, like to grow this business together, but to automate it, right, so that it could just naturally flow and do its thing, so we could keep doing what we want to do. So I'm still in that phase now. I'd really like to sit down with somebody and say, hey, look, show me how to run this thing. Show me what I'm doing wrong, and show me what I could do better. I'd really like somebody good to critique me and tell me what I'm doing wrong or what I need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's the
so I'm
billion-dollar
impressed.
question right there, man. That's the billion-dollar question. And
Yeah, well, we'll definitely keep you in the loop when Abraham comes on, and
yeah,
we keep this open. Like if anyone else wanted to join, they would be in here and be able to ask us questions and you questions. We like to keep it kind of an open forum. I don't know if you've been on any of JJ Azizian's
Have not.
Yeah. So he kind of interviews people, but then he brings people up for questions. But we like to do it a little more open, like little more informal, I guess. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely let you know, because yeah, we could all compile our questions and see how long we can get him to hang out.
Absolutely. You got about 5 minutes with him. Use it wisely, I'd
No,
imagine.
and you're probably not wrong, man. His time is precious, obviously, right? So you got a limited time to get those questions out. I'm sure he'll break off some time for promotion and to hang out and ask questions. But yeah, we want to make the best use of the time with him for sure. So look, I think we're at an hour right now, so I think we can probably end it. But I appreciate you being here, man. This was really good and a lot of good advice, a lot of good info. So
Yeah,
I
come back.
appreciate it.
yeah, you should come
Yeah,
back.
I appreciate it. It was good. It was a good surprise, man. I appreciate you guys letting me talk.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
like to talk,
appreciate
so.
you coming on, man. Like, it would have just
Hey,
probably just been me and Justin, and we get tired of talking to each other sometimes.
so Justin, I didn't see you at the SoCal meetup down here in San Diego a couple days ago.
no, I didn't make it to the SoCal meetup. I'm
Would have been
such a
nice.
freaking man with my between my W-2 and doing all this, like I just have I'm not.
Excuses.
It's excuses. All right, right. I just my time is so it feels like, between this and my family and doing everything, it's like I get slots of time to go do stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm going to JJ's thing in June,
Me
and
too.
I'm gonna be going to my other buddy's multifamily meetup, which Pansy, you can go there too. It's in San Diego, so I'll be going to that. So I do
Is
make
that
time for this
Steve's?
stuff. I'm not, and here's the other thing. And this
He
isn't.
asked you a question. Is it Steve for
Is that
the
Steve's?
multi?
No. It's Josh Rusin. Do you know who Josh Rusin is? Multifamily. It's this multifamily
Oh,
nation. So
yeah, no.
Josh Rusin and oh gosh, I forget his partner's name. Anyway, but the main guy's Josh Rusin. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, and then yeah, obviously like JJ's, but I'm and as far as this, are you talking about the one with Pace that just happened?
Yeah, Pace came down on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
So, no offense, and then this isn't a knock on Pace at all, but like the last two meetups that I went to where Pace was supposed to be there, like he didn't show up. I
Uh,
still had a great time, but like Pace didn't show up. So,
yeah, yeah.
and I get, but look, the guy, shit happens,
Yeah.
and he's traveling and he's super busy, so it's not a knock on Pace. It's just, man, I gotta pick my times. So
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. No, no, no worries. I was just wondering because I was just kind of confirming, I guess, if you didn't show up because I mean, there was a lot of people there, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
I try to make my
Hey,
rounds to everybody. So,
you know what? And that's a fair point. I need to be making my
so
rounds.
I don't. So this is actually one of the first couple of meetups I've actually gone to. So I made a point. So I've been part of the program for the last 2 years, right? And I didn't really haven't never went to a meetup. Didn't go to squat up. I actually procrastinated this last squat up. That's why I didn't go. I was supposed to go, but I procrastinated. But and then the first squat up, I just didn't go. I was so busy closing deals and doing stuff like that. So I just really didn't have time, honestly. And I mean, I probably would have been nice to have gone, but I just didn't go. So, anyways, so this year I said, you know what, I'm gonna make it a point to go to meetups and to get involved, kind of post a little bit more that I haven't done the last couple of years. I've been pretty quiet, but I had my head down. I was grinding. I was doing what I needed to do. I've made some good money in the last couple of years. I've helped a lot of people, I think, get their first deals, and that's kind of something I like doing is helping people get their first deal. I'm getting paid at the same time, but they get their first deal. They make some good money, and they kind of learn. And so my hope is that I can help somebody one or two times, and then they can kind of fly on their own. You know what I mean?
Ah,
And hopefully I've taught them enough to be able to connect. And I'm always here to help, right? I'm always willing to help anybody out and
yeah.
stuff like that. But that's what I've been doing. My head's been down. I've been grinding, been making this money, trying to do things, trying to get out of this $90,000 debt that I had. So I'm paying that myself on the money I make. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
You're
that's what I'm
not
doing. So
alone in
this
that
year,
one,
I'm
man.
literally
You're not
making a
alone.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the cool thing is we have an avenue of making money. As long as you don't quit. Some people just they get discouraged and they get hurt and then they
Right.
quit, right? But rather than do that, is you keep grinding, right? There's so many ways to make money here that all you gotta do is just keep grinding so that you can start covering, recouping some of that. So that's all I've been doing, man. But this year, I've made a point. I said I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna meet people. I'm gonna connect better and just try to build stronger, longer lasting relationships. So that's what
Love
I'm
that,
out
man.
doing.
And JZ, you're out of San Diego, right?
I am.
And what's the program so where people can reach you?
So I'm on Deal Connectors. We have a group on Deal Connectors on Facebook.
Okay.
And if you're a Gator or sub two or in that kind of space, we invite you to come out and join. I'm not too much on Instagram. I'm trying to get this Instagram thing out, but I'm at JZ underscore the plug. And then you can reach me on Facebook at JZ Zendejas. And so I'm a connector, man, but I'm also a flipper, and I have a co-living house that we're working on. We're just about to pick up
Nice.
our second co-living house.
What's your co-living? What type of co-living is it for?
So we're doing a rental arbitrage. We're doing arbitrage, right? We're not purchasing properties. It's a little bit easier for us. I think I like it better. It's quicker to get in.
What type
But
of
we're
people are you
So we're
putting in?
focused on, well, I mean, right now we're focused on, work, people who come in and work, right? People who come in for a short period of time, they're working, they're not there for a long time, but we'd like to convert it over into like a VASH program. I have two brother-in-laws that are part of the military
Oh, that's with
that were,
the veterans, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So I've been looking into that and calling around and trying to figure out how do I get into the VASH program. My brother-in-laws are one of my brother-in-law has he's where he lives is from the VASH program. Really good program. They cover most of the rent for these guys. And so we've been trying to do that. It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but
Do
it's
you need more
something.
connections? I know a few people that know about the VASH program.
If you do, yeah, that's fine. Please send them my way. I'm just trying to get into how we can convert our house into helping veterans, right?
They
So
do that. So
I see the help that they've done for my brother-in-law, and so I know that if we could get into that program, I mean, our house right now, it was a 6 bedroom. We added 3 bedrooms. We got 9 bedrooms. That 9 rooms could be helping 9 veterans. You know what I mean? And so our
yeah.
next house should be close to 8 or 9 rooms, and so it could be housing another 8 or 9 veterans. And I know that in California, there's a massive need, right, for housing. Now, but if you just look at the military community, it's huge, right? They need a lot of help, and so I'd really like to help. I've got military in my family. I'm not military, but I have military in my family, so obviously my heart's there. My heart is for people who come out of gangs and drugs and all that stuff because I'm from when I was young, gang banging and all that stuff. I came from that, and so my heart's there. And so I'm always willing to help somebody who's coming out of drugs, coming out of gangs, coming out of prison, because I get it and I understand it, and so my heart's
How do
there.
you get your people for your co-living?
Right now we're looking. I mean, it's furnished finders. There's roomies out here. There's a couple other. We've done some marketplace just to kind of get people who are working professionals just to come in and stay for a while. So
Okay.
right now, I mean, we've had it for a couple of months, and we've only had one guy move out. Everybody else is pretty much. But so the second and third house if we can't get into the VASH program, we'll probably end up converting into and I don't know if pad split works with, but we're eventually going to go pad split. I just don't know if they work with VASH or if they allow us to work with VASH. I don't know how that works,
Yeah,
but
you got to check the regulations on that. I would go to the pad split page and just check out their regulations or their um
Have you talked to Mario Finkbinder?
I have not.
He's a veteran and he works with veterans, and I'm pretty sure he knows all about the VASH, and not to mention he knows how to work with banks and everything else. Um he has a bankruptcy or foreclosure training um on like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that. I don't know. I can get you information though. There's like 3 people off the top of my head that I know for a fact um work with the VASH or know at least about all of like the VASH things, the VASH program. So
That'd be great. Send them my way, please. That'd be great.
yeah.
yeah, do me a favor, JC. Send me over your Instagram handle and the Facebook group, or just send me the name of it, and I'll put the links in our description so people can find you.
Yeah, whatever you want to
Yeah.
share,
Yeah.
for your business, whatever, we'll drop it in there.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can after the Zoom, we'll just hang out for just a second, and I'll grab that information from you. So,
Sounds
Yeah.
good, my brother.
well, listen, like I said, it's been a great. I appreciate you being here and dropping some knowledge. So it's been super helpful. I hope we've at least helped somebody, right, out there.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you,
Appreciate it.
JZ Pansy. This is Justin for Friends with Benefits podcast. We will see you on the next one.
Peace.
Stay good.